it's the best of times and the worst of times for investigative journalism. Here we are at the end of the 20th century, just about to embark into the 21st century, and some really a lot of possibilities opening up in terms of the internet and all kinds of media and big possibilities of global reporting and local reporting, but also some of the kind of really horrendous things been going on. And one of the first things on my mind is the question of sources and use of anonymous sources in the Monica Lewinsky, Bill Clinton story. All these unattributed sources. Who's talking? I have no idea who these people are who are talking and providing information. I think it's a good time right now to reflect on reporting and journalism and where we've been and where we're going. I think that we're at a turning point, and I hope that there can be a lot of public discussion and debate about it. There's an awful lot of media in this country, and there's an awful lot of media watchers. I think it's important to watch their media and to watch it with to reflect on it and to think critically about it. And I think this is a good time to have a larger, extended, open discussion between people who consume the media and watch it and read it and listen to it, and the people who produce it, and to create the kind of media that we want and the kind of media that we really need. In terms of sources, there's a lot of times when I protect the sources, I don't name the person, but there's a real person there. I've never made anybody up, and cultivating sources is really important. Having people you trust, having people you can go to, having people who come to the reporter or come to me and with information, and because they want it to get out, and because it has public value. There was the high point of sources back in the Watergate days. Deep Throat, a man who provided Woodward and Bernstein with vital information about Nixon and the Nixon White House and the people who'd later be arrested, and that whole Watergate affair. And that was certainly a high point. I think the Monica Lewinsky unattributed sources is a low point in American reporting and journalism. There's a movie that I worked on called Homegrown that's set in the world of marijuana, and in making this picture, the director of the picture used artificial or imitation marijuana plants for some of the scenes, plants made of bamboo and silk. And when we were on the set of the picture in Santa Cruz, some of these fake plants were stolen off the set. I thought that was interesting part of the story. And so I wrote about it, and the director of the picture wanted me to say that there were real marijuana plants that were used in this picture. And I wouldn't go along with that. I don't want to fudge the truth or doctor the story, because somebody in a position of authority sort of wants it to be a certain way. I want to tell it as much as possible the way it is. To tell the truth and to tell it in a way that holds people's attention. Oh, I think there do need to be reporters who are taking risks, and but are also ethical about it. I was talking this morning with a notable New York journalist named Pete Hamill, and he was saying that in the old days, the reporters that he worked with had the instincts of a burglar and the values of a saint. So the good reporter is part burglar, part saint. There are places where you have to get into. You have to maybe not literally break into, but you've got to get in some place where people don't want you to be and describe what's there and what's going on. But you have to do it in a way that's very moral and very ethical and saintly. And maybe it's difficult to do that, but I think it's worth aiming for that and definitely striving for that. I know I just kind of really like to respect people's requests for anonymity. If people come to me in confidence, and I really don't like to reveal a person's name and the person's identity. People have a right to go about their own lives and not have the media sort of intrude. There's a sort of right to privacy, right to secrecy. I think there's ways of getting information across without revealing sources. A lot of stories, in order to do them, you you got to have help from somebody. You got to have somebody opening the door or providing access. And there are times when I've done prison stories or stories about people in prison, and you can't get into a prison unless you've got help from the prison authorities, unless they give you open the doors and let you in. And there's a lot that's going on inside prisons, and it's getting increasingly difficult to find out about what is going on in prisons. There's control of information that comes out, and prisoners are not supposed to be reporters, though they can very often be very good sources of information about what's going on inside a prison. People say that prisoners are not objective and they won't provide the whole story. Well, I can see that they have a point of view, they have an agenda, but they're experiencing the situation directly, and they very often do have vital information to get across. This is the 30th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. There's still questions in people's minds about the assassination. There's sort of a legacy from that time. James Earl Ray is still alive. He's in prison. I think the King family would like to see a sort of broader investigation, examination. I would think it would be important if the media could get in and talk to James Earl Ray, if we could see this man. See, what is he like now? Does he have any, is he willing to talk more and to say more about those circumstances from 1968? There's a lot of stories that I've been seeing in the paper recently from a long time ago. The Bay of Pigs invasion, the American CIA invasion of Cuba in 1962. There was a secret CIA report that was done 36 years ago. It was just released in the New York Times. There were some American nuns who were killed in El Salvador over 15 years ago, and they were assassinated under the orders of the military in El Salvador. That story just came out. Well, very often, the bigger the story, the slower it travels. It takes a very long time to get here. I'd like to see the reporting speeded up, so we don't have to wait 15 or 20 or 30 or 35 years before the information comes out. There's been in this country there's been secret reports, CIA, FBI reports, government documents that are really important, and we do have a key that does let us in, and that's called the Freedom of Information Act, the FOIA, and I have on many occasions used the Freedom of Information Act. I used it to write about Abbie Hoffman, who was a leading 60s radical and an environmental activist in the 1980s. And there were 44,000 pages of FBI documents about Abbie Hoffman. I was able to get 7,000 pages. I went to Washington, D.C., I went to FBI headquarters and sat there for a week and read his documents day after day, all day long. Very, very important to take advantage of this Freedom of Information Act to get at secret documents and information. I'm almost always working on stories. I really like investigative journalism. A friend of mine said very recently, gosh, why do we have to say investigative journalism? Why shouldn't all journalism be investigative? Investigating means looking into, examining asking questions, probing, of not just taking it for granted that all the information is there on the surface and everyone is just disclosing the full and complete story at the start. But we've gotten to ourselves in this position now where we do have to say investigative journalism, meaning the journalism that does dig and does look and peers around the corner and under the carpet and it asks difficult questions, tough questions. And I would like to do a story about a San Francisco attorney named Tony Serra. He was the defense attorney in a case of a Native American from Northern California named Bear Lincoln, who was on trial last year for murder charges of killing a police officer. He was Bear Lincoln was acquitted of the murder charge. It was a hung jury on lesser charges, and he's supposed to go on trial again in September. Tony Serra is a very creative, outspoken criminal defense lawyer, one of the best criminal defense lawyers in the country. And there are gag orders imposed upon him. He's not supposed to talk to the public about this case. It's a case in which the judge has said that he's got to keep his mouth shut. And I think that's unfortunate. I think it's a limitation on freedom of speech and the First Amendment, that lawyers do need to be able to talk about their clients, to present their case. And especially in the case of Bear Lincoln, he after the police officer was shot, he disappeared. People say that makes him look guilty, but he was also very afraid for his life, and that the months in which he was a fugitive, the local newspapers and television stations ran articles about him and didn't always present him in a favorable light, or didn't always present the full and complete picture about him. So I think that when he did turn himself in, the judge imposed a gag order, and he was not allowed to speak, and his lawyer was not allowed to speak. And that was the time precisely when Tony Serra did need to speak. And I would like to talk to him about his own career and gag orders. And a lot in our time, this has been the age of the prosecuting attorney rather than the courageous defense lawyer. I'd like to bring back the story of the dedicated defense lawyer, and there's also been a really important relationship between crusading reporters and defiant lawyers and who have defended the rights of people and then reporters who've presented those landmark cases to the American public. There's important stories that are being reported. I think that there's a revival of investigative reporting. There is a story from Napa about migrant workers. There's a story from the Press Democrat about workers' compensation. Stories that are really important that people in this part of the world know about. So I'm glad to see that tradition of American muckraking and American investigative reporting is going on, and I think that needs to go on a lot more, where people have access to newspapers and their editors and reporters, and editors and reporters have close contact with people in their own community. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and read the paper.